What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, brought to you by DraftKings. Listen, I don't want to alarm anybody. I don't want to sound the alarm, but we've got some alarming peripherals to talk about from last year. If you have been following along for some of the stuff that JJ has done, some of the names might not surprise you, to be honest, but there might be someone that might surprise you. So we're just saying, just draft with caution. You know, this is for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. It's a late round fantasy football show sponsored by DraftKings. Welcome in. A little sleep deprived, but that's for good reason. It's because we have been at it to get this draft guide done, JJ.
Indeed. Yeah.
Right.
My readiness scores, I wear an Aura ring. My readiness scores have been absolute trash the last 3 weeks. Just horrific beyond belief. I can't wait. I'm going on vacation on Saturday to next Saturday, so I'll be gone for a week. But that doesn't mean that the guide's not launching. The guide is launching, but it does mean that I had to get a lot of the content done, before I left on Saturday. So, I mean, we're like 99.5% done at this point.
Don't jinx it.
I'm just saying we're in a really good spot right now. We put the finishing touches on it earlier today. Going to have some people proof it and have it ready for Tuesday next week.
Yeah, if you're listening live and you're in the Discord and you are good at editing and proofing and have already purchased a guide, hit me up, because we're going to send it out to a handful of people to help edit this thing. Just one of the many perks you get being a Discord member, being a member of our Patreon community. Also want to shout out our sponsor, DraftKings, with their best ball draft one, get one promotion. JJ, I've enjoyed seeing you go through some of the things this year that I have gone through in the past on DraftKings, because it is unpredictable. I did hear you say in the Leone episode, though, you enjoy the mass chaos that it can bring, though.
I didn't realize that I was going to enjoy it as much as I do, but I do enjoy it a lot because, again, it goes back to what Rich Ryan talked about, right? Like, in one breath, we can't say, hey, we want to draft against weaker competition, or, I shouldn't say weaker. I should just say,
Softer.
Like non-degens, right? Like healthier people, right? Is who we want to draft against. In one breath, we can't say that and then tilt off the planet when some team gets like a Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts 2-3 turn or something like that, just to do something weird and crazy and different. Because that's helping your team if you can land the plane, if you will.
The draft that you sent me, though, where someone took 5 straight quarterbacks after Jefferson,
hasn't been canceled yet.
It won't. They can't cancel that.
Well, then that's a waste of $20 for me, because
that is horrible. I'm telling you, I think it'll work out for you. You had to be true to your name and go late round quarterback. You go Stafford. Was he your QB1?
Yeah. So for those of you I sent a tweet out. By the way, I sent that tweet out, and there are people on Twitter who think I'm the one who took the 5 quarterbacks. But someone in a draft of mine took a quarterback in round 2 through round 6. Okay, so 5 straight quarterbacks, and then started to draft relatively normal after that. But it caused absolute chaos in the room, and I should have been more aggressive, obviously, because when that kind of thing happens, you have to think about the trickle down of, okay, if this team has 5 quarterbacks, then other teams are going to have to probably reach a little bit more for the position, which means the costs are going to go up a little bit. And at every point in the draft, I had like a pretty good value. And so I didn't want to really so I didn't really want to like force the issue, but I should have, because I ended up with Matthew Stafford as my QB1. And then I got sniped a couple times. And I did what Leone and I had talked about on Becoming a Best Ball Bro, which was stacking the Indianapolis Colts quarterback room, which I think it's the only quarterback room that I would do that more comfortably this year. Cause like you could do it with like the Giants, right? With like Russ and Jackson Dart. And I mean, maybe Jameis gets some love this year, but you could do it with the Giants. But to me, you don't get the mobility the same way you do with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. And the weapons in Indianapolis are actually quite good. They play in a dome, all that kind of stuff. So like you could make the argument that the combination of those two, of Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, when you obviously want to shoot for upside and all that kind of stuff, but like in a predicament like that, which I was in, I do think it was a logical, sound, approach and way to go about things.
As far as like that guy's strategy though, I just wonder if he saw you in the draft be like, let's see exactly how late round this guy is going to be.
I mean, but I mean, do people know? People don't know JJpedia yet.
They do
Like they're not fully aware of JJpedia.
I don't know.
The thing is though, I do like I will say, if anyone sees JJpedia in the DraftKings streets and you do something absolutely insane, I'll probably tweet it. I'll probably tweet about it.
All right. Just a reminder, this is an interactive show. So both during the show and after the show, hit us up with some comments, some feedback. Appreciate you guys. Jaquan, Mark saying, hey, Sal saying the draft guide release day is the best part of Canada Day.
Right. It is Canada Day, isn't it?
To Sal in Canada. Love JJ, best in business. I had to get Just Jefferson and JJ McCarthy just because their names.
Big year for JJs. You got JJ Spawn. You got the JJ to JJ connection that's going to happen in Minnesota. You got a lot of good JJ stuff. And JJ Watt just had another baby. Just a great time to be a JJ.
Yeah. How do you know that? Oh, because he's a.
No, but we're a fraternity. We're a fraternity.
Yeah.
We send text updates whenever big things happen.
You follow the all the Watts people because of Pittsburgh stuff as well.
Just JJs.
TJ.
Yeah.
All right. As far as the guide again goes on sale Tuesday or goes live Tuesday. You can purchase it right now, pre-order, you get a lower price. But you can still buy it after it releases. We'll still take your money. This thing is over 200 pages, though. It's looking great, and we appreciate
best guide of my life. Best guide of my life.
Are you just saying that?
No, I think
really think that.
I think it's the best guide that I mean, obviously you're helping this year, but like,
yeah, I want to know if there's like something different this year.
It's the best year. It's the best guide that late round fantasy football has put together to date. And I feel very confident in saying that. I think people are going to read it and they're going to say, wow, this is stuff that JJ hasn't really talked about before. Not from like I'm sitting with a therapist perspective, but a fantasy football, strategy perspective. I genuinely think, like, I say that confidently because I know how much effort was put into it.
Yeah. A lot of, over 200 pages. And even if you just want to skip to the rankings and the cheat sheets and everything else at the end, or the players to target, players to avoid, that's okay. You just know, like, when you are doing that, you're going to see a whole lot of data to back up why JJ has put those guys like he has. And with that being said, JJ, you ready to get to today's news?
Yeah, we need to, what we need to do?
Yeah.
Realistically, we need videos for each segment, intro videos for each segment of the show.
Yeah. Like I could just do the sound effects now.
Now we just need to clip that sound effect and make the video with that sound effect in the background.
We really do need transition videos though.
Yeah, I think people would dig it. And it's not that hard to do. It's just but like even like New Heights, right? When they do they have like new news and they're like, I've
never seen it.
You never listened to New Heights?
I've seen the clips. My wife listens to it way more than I do. I've never listened to one. I've never listened to a full episode of New Heights or Bussin' with the Boys. Or
I haven't listened to Bussin' with the Boys, but I've heard plenty of New Heights before.
Yeah.
But it's not like whenever I listen to podcasts, I'm not typically listening to football podcasts and fantasy football podcasts. Yeah,
same. And I've been on record that before this, the only podcast I was listening to for fantasy football, like religiously, like within every week, was this podcast. So now I just get paid to do that. So
yeah, true. It's very true.
Yeah. Oh, win-win. All right, Dad. Today's news, starting with shrinkage in Cleveland. Also, shout out to the news chat in our Discord, because they are who alerted me to this. But really, it's just about Deontay Johnson. Basically, it has come to light, and no one's surprised by this, but it's come to light in a 41-degree weather game last year. He said it was too cold. He just refused to go in. Someone said, good thing he's now playing in Cleveland. But apparently the Browns are the only team that reached out to him as well. I wonder why, after the whole Baltimore Texans Panthers deal in one season. But then again, like, he's free in best ball, and like that wide receiver room is not the best room, JJ.
You know what? You want to hear something that's crazy? And we're going to talk about this player on today's show when we talk about alarming 2024 peripherals, which Kitchen kind of axed because it's too nerdy and too janky of a title for a show. But
just like peripherals are just like you're gonna get different.
That's fine. Okay, look, you won. Okay, you won. But when you look at Dave Gettleman, we're gonna meme that one. Someone's gonna screenshot that. But I'm gonna talk about Elijah Moore later today, in like 20 minutes. And did you know that Elijah Moore has had back-to-back 100 target seasons?
No, I don't, but it doesn't surprise me. Like I've
crazy?
I've got a lot of Elijah Moore.
Do you? Well, he sucked last year, so
I know.
So we're gonna have to figure that one out a little bit. I've always loved Elijah Moore. I loved him as a prospect, liked him as a rookie, obviously. And he's just kind of busted since then. But I do think that there is some opportunity here for him to be the primary slot for them and kind of rotate with Jerry Jeudy inside out a little bit, because Jeudy can play the slot comfortably, right? And so like and Deontay's played actually a lot on the perimeter, but I think they're both kind of inside out type players. And this is what we've talked about before on the show, where like they didn't have that established slot. Jamari Thrash was the guy who was listed in that depth chart for a long period of time as a slot. And I think that's why they went and drafted Harold Fannin, because they like a lot of, like Stefanski likes a lot of that 12 personnel stuff. But there is some intrigue, I think, because Deontay Johnson is not bad. It's everything with Deontay Johnson that's gone on has been between the ears. Now, this comment that he made is another between the ears kind of issue and comment, right? Like, just, don't say that you've given up and that, you just weren't in it. I mean, that's a huge deal when you're a professional athlete, right? Like that's a huge part of being elite, is the motivation to be elite, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's definitely a lot of question marks because of that, but I think him as a talent is still good.
So did you ever watch Last Chance U?
I did. I watched the first season of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because in our minds, we think about things like, okay, this is my last chance. I'm going to give it my all because it's going to open up other doors. And some people did do that, but some people just cannot help themselves. And that is, I think, the worry about Deontay Johnson. All right. From a cold Johnson to a hot Watson, Christian Watson in Green Bay, tweeting out pictures, or maybe his Instagram, of him running routes, feeling good. Again, a crowded wide receiver room there in Green Bay, but it's Christian Watson. What if he stays healthy?
I'm just gonna say this as my hot take of the show, because I can't think of anything else to say with this Christian Watson stuff. But my take is that I think if you're looking at this wide receiving group objectively, they've told us and shown us that Jaden Reed is a slot guy for them. He doesn't run out there in 11 or in two wide receiver sets. He's only an 11 personnel kind of wide receiver, which is unfortunate because I love Jaden Reed as a talent. I liked him a lot coming out. I've touted him in the past, but it just seems like that's the way that Green Bay wants to deploy him. I don't think Watson's going to be back still until at least mid-season, into like November, more than likely. That's based on like what a lot of Twitter docs and stuff say. And then there's Romeo Doubs, obviously, and then Dontavian Wicks, who just, speaking of a guy who just can't bring it all together, Wicks is that player for Green Bay. By the way, another fun fact, Dontavian Wicks led the Packers last year in targets. Isn't that crazy?
He probably led the Packers last year and dropped targets as well.
Well, that's true. But part of that was just him being healthy and being able to be on the field, but it's still kind of crazy. Yeah. And so the way I see it is, if you want like a stable piece in that group, it's got to be Matthew Golden at the end of the day. Like, first round wide receiver, they usually get a lot of love. He's already playing in two wide receiver sets. I like Romeo Dubs more as like a best ball value right now. I've drafted a lot of him as like a backdoor Jordan Love, Green Bay stack, but I do think that, Golden, is the safest bet out of that group.
All right. Return of the Mac and others. This is the time of the year where we get like second team reps or players playing behind reps. So Mac Hollins playing in front of Kyle Williams, Patriots wide receiver room. It's it's crowded a little bit, and the question is, are we pumping the brakes a little bit on Kyle Williams?
Think we have to. I was thinking about having him as a player to target in the draft guide. I think we gotta cool it for a second because there's a chance that Kyle Williams ends up being more of that waiver wire player from a season long perspective. And so I'm not going to be as aggressive with Williams right now. I don't think we need to be. I think Stephon Diggs is becoming, given his recovery and what we've seen with his knee, becoming the clear alpha in that offense. Like, I'm talking like he could see 120, 130 targets in that offense this year. Don't think he's that horrible of a pick as a result of that. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think we gotta cool it with Williams. With that being said, it's one of those situations where, if let's say, obviously if training camp starts up and there's a lot of favorable reports about Kyle Williams, and we know that he's a pretty talented prospect, then we can say, okay, let's get aggressive again and be fine. Because I don't think that the market's going to adjust quick enough. But the other thing too is that, like, let's say that the whole, all of August in the preseason doesn't really go Kyle Williams' way. He can be on speed dial. We can get ready for him right away on our waiver wire and be aggressive with this kind of player because we know at least the situation and talent profile isn't that bad. But right now, I think you got to cool it a little bit with Williams if you're drafting in best ball.
Yeah, and kind of going to next bullet point is Thornton and Beck's side. Dante Thornton still continue. Now he's being drafted in every best ball draft.
Correct.
Jack Beck is like going to be towards the end now. Like they're slowly switching. But then again, we also have, who was the Justin Jefferson guy? He was playing behind
Olabisi Johnson.
Yeah. And that kind of threw everybody into a tizzy too.
If I'm wrong, someone fact check me, but I think that's who it was.
Okay. Yeah. You say, why not Jacoby outside?
Yeah. So my whole point is, like, Jacoby Myers can play inside out. Okay. He played a lot in the slot in New England, but he's proven that he can play on the perimeter in Vegas. And to me, Jack Besh is a slot guy first and foremost. Like, he can play there. He profiles there. Although, his final season at TCU, like, he played on the perimeter and he was actually quite good in his final season. The Zap model didn't love him. It was kind of like meh about Besh, but Besh was one of those players that, he was beloved by some film watchers and some folks who, look at that stuff in more detail than I do, like a Matt Harmon. And so I think Besh in an ideal world is their slot player. And then I think Jacoby Myers plays, on the outside with Deontay Thornton, and maybe Thornton would rotate with Trey Tucker. Now, Thornton's interesting as a player because he was really, really efficient per route run in college. And we've seen this before over the last couple of years where you get a guy like Puka Nacua, Lad McConkey. They were very, very efficient per route run, but for whatever reason, their offenses weren't using them and deploying them that frequently. So their overall, yards per team pass attempt numbers weren't that strong. Maybe that's Deontay Thornton. I think it's a little bit different though. My comp for Thornton was Martavis Bryant as like the high end comp, which we would love that, right? Like, from a fantasy perspective, there's nothing wrong with that. He's a different kind of player than obviously Lad, who's a different kind of player than Puka Nacua. But sometimes every once in a while you get players who are just underrated and undervalued from a production perspective because their teams are just irrational in their use. But I think Thornton is pretty much a field stretcher. Like, I'd be shocked if he's like a high volume kind of player, perfect for best ball, right? Like a really good player for that kind of format. But in a regular season long league, it's going to be tough, I think, unless you're in you got like deep starting lineups or something like that. it's going to be tough to really slot him in confidently. He's more of good. Like he'll be someone that I feature on the sleeper show, probably, not someone that I'm like confidently plugging into my lineup each week. I still think Jack Besh, not that I'm going to say go draft him heavily right now, because there is negative news. And anytime there's negative news, that's really scary. For any player this time of year, but a player like Besh, I still think has a lot more volume upside than a player like Thornton does.
Well, and I think you also had one of the beat writers coming in and saying that, see if I can find it. Thornton's strong performances are in no way a reflection on Besh. That's coming from Raiders beat writer Vincent Bonsignor. I don't know how you say how you pronounce the last name.
I mean, but here the real it's Trey Tucker that we're talking about here. That is the actual wild card. It's not, to me, Deontay Thornton. It's Trey Tucker being their 3 and the other guy on the outside, because they're saying that Jacoby Myers will be playing the slot. Trey Tucker is more of the redundant piece to Deontay Thornton, which is why I thought when they drafted Besh and then they drafted Thornton that they actually had a reasonable idea for a 3 wide receiver set. And then they're saying all this other stuff. I'm not convinced that Besh is done for, let's cool it a little bit. These are just reports. It's just they're probably testing things out too. So let's wait a little bit.
All right. From Besh's side to Taylor's tight end, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Greg Olsen hosting Tight End U here in Nashville. Did you see that Taylor Swift
performed? Yeah, I did. And then I saw her dancing with up there with Kittle and Kittle's wife, I think. Yeah.
I was almost about to go to this concert.
Why didn't you?
I was really close. We had
you're working on the draft.
I mean, honestly, I would have postponed the draft guide till afterwards too, but I had a basketball end of year party for my daughter that we were at. But
how many people were there? Pretty cool. It looked like a 200-person venue.
Yeah, it's like we the old company that I was with, we had our Christmas party there. It's called Brooklyn. It's Brooklyn Bowl. There's one in Vegas, one in Brooklyn, but it's like half bowling, half concert venue. But it's like 1,000 person venue or smaller.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to go just to kind of network and rub elbows with some tight ends and see if I could maybe, get some insider access next year. But I enjoy all the tight end U stuff.
Me too. I put in the sheet just now. I said tight ends are awesome. I think it's the best position in football. They're the most agreeable position in football.
And they have a brotherhood, and that's kind of what this all stems from.
And they just seem like they all of them are just completely they're just fun, good dudes. Even did you see that George Pickens backed out of a youth camp thing in Pittsburgh? And I'm not going to judge Pickens because he's in Dallas and all that kind of stuff.
What? He did?
And, yeah, he backed out of a. By the way, can you stretch the screen a little bit more to fill in the black? There we go. It's making me a little OCD. Okay. But Pickens skipped this camp thing, and you know who stepped up?
Tell me it was a tight end.
It was Pat Freiermuth. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's a tight end for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're just sweet guys.
He's gonna be tight end too. All right.
No good, more white space.
All right. So let's Atmosphere Brooklyn Bowl in Vegas. Atmosphere sounds like a band. I don't have no clue who that is.
Yeah, I'm not a big enough music guy to know what's going on here.
Also, want to know if Late Round would maybe consider purchasing a Vasper workout system.
Oh, I heard that it has some benefits.
Yeah. Cardiovascular benefits.
We'll let people Google that one. Actually, don't Google that
one. George Kittle just made some comment. He was talking about just the benefits of working out. I thought it was funny though, him talking about coaches that would go to this machine, to beat the players to the machine so that they could get a workout in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Green Bay's coach.
New perk for late round fantasy football.
Yeah. Someone posted it in the chat, 52,000 for a used system.
Really?
Yeah.
Got to sell a lot of draft guides.
A lot of draft guides. All right. Let's go. People asking where the benefits. I'm not going to tell you about the benefits. You got to look that up for yourself. Let's go to today's data.
Yeah, today's data. Was it data? Do you say data? I don't know what I say.
I say it both kind of.
Me too.
What? How do you say it?
Today's date. I'd say data probably. Yeah. Yeah.
How does the chat say it? I want to know. Like,
they're all just going to write the word data over and over again. We're not going to know.
Oh, long A or short A? All right, go for it.
So I got a question for the mailbag, and I wrote a newsletter about this yesterday. This is from the newsletter. But the mailbag question was about Ashton Jeanty and how he was being drafted at his ceiling and stuff. And what I did in the newsletter was I looked at rookies historically that have been drafted high in our redraft leagues since 2014. We've had 7 of them, right? And I think that and I talk about this in detail in the mailbag, and I talk about it in the newsletter, but I just think that we as players and analysts often look at players not living up to expectation incorrectly. Oftentimes you'll hear like, okay, Ashton Jeanty is being drafted as the RB4. Therefore, if he doesn't finish as the RB4 or better, then he was a bust. Or if he doesn't finish as the RB whatever, then he's a bust. Just use expected fantasy points at certain ADPs. This is based on history. It's based on what we've seen from running backs in that spot historically. So you can see here, you get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had an overall ADP around 6, Saquon Barkley around 7, Bijan around 8. You're seeing what their expected points are per game at that spot. So obviously 16.6 points per game is really high. Like that's a really solid, like RB 8 to 10 type season or whatever, like RB 10 or so. And people are gonna be like, well, that doesn't make any sense because you're drafting them in the top half of the first round. It's like, okay, I get it. But like, this is based, number one, on players who played 8 or more games in the season. So injuries aren't even factored in here. It's just based on the fact that some players don't live up to expectation. Some players do live up to expectation. And this is what we have seen historically based on that trend line. Right. And so Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not by far, but was the worst first round running back, or first 2 rounds. This is what this includes. Rookie running back since 2014. But overall, it really hasn't been that bad of a group, right? You have Saquon Barkley, who crushed it. You have Ezekiel Elliott, who crushed it. Najee Harris and Kareem Hunt were fine. Bijan, as we know, was not a success because Arthur Smith deployed him like a moron. And then Christian McCaffrey played a little bit below expectation. But like, I do think that, going back to the Ashton Jeanty discussion, he's more in like that Najee range. And obviously it's going to like depend on, would he be higher in a different season or something like that? Sure. But this is just a general like vibe and look at how these guys have been drafted historically. I'm not saying target Ashton Jeanty, but I would not use the reason to avoid him as he can't live up to expectation, or he's being drafted at his ceiling
too high. Yeah.
Because his ceiling, or his expectation is realistically like 16 to 16.2 PPR points per game, which he can, get to. Like it's not out of the question at all. So I think the reason that you would fade him would be that you like CMC more and or you're worried about that offense being productive, right? Like those are 2 very main reasons. And right now in season long, I know it's not happening in best ball, but often in best ball, but in season long, rankers and ADP have Ashton Jeanty ahead of Christian McCaffrey, which I have Christian McCaffrey ahead of Jeanty. So if I'm only drafting in one league, I'd rather go CMC for that upside, but I don't think that Jeanty is egregiously priced as a result of all this.
Okay. And just a reminder as your COO, just to tell people, if you haven't subscribed to the late round newsletter, go lateround.com and subscribe to that, because you're going to get nuggets like this for free.
Yeah.
Like you sent out. And then JJ gets to explain itself. Jason says soft A is more formal. So data is more formal. Hard A, data, is more laxed. And Tyler says all the signs folks he works with say data. He prefers dada.
I like data.
Okay.
I like data.
I like data too. I like data too. All right. Let's get on to the main topic. This is when we need the transition video and like some
so great.
warning sounds.
Yeah, right. Just some sirens and stuff. Okay, you just spoiled something. I didn't even know that you threw that in there, but this will be fun. Okay. All right. Here we go. Here we go.
It was already at the lower part. All right, so let's go.
Yeah.
The cover boys, Jalen Waddle, who honestly, the what if situations for both these guys, I have a ton of Waddle already.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to fade Odunze because he falls in another tier kind of with guys that I like better. And plus, just all the Odunze talk scares me. But Waddle,
yes.
Talk to me about last year and how you're feeling about this year.
I think, and this is something I bring up in the mailbag that's going to release tomorrow. I think that Miami is in a make or break situation where they really have to use their wide receivers more than they did last year in order to be a more sustainable offense. With that being said, if you look at the split with and without Tua last year, 1.2 touchdowns per game without Tua, 2.45 with Tua, which 2.45 touchdowns per game is right outside the top 10. Like, they weren't that bad with Tua last year in that really low A-dot offense, but that low A-dot offense led to what you're seeing here with Jalen Waddle, which is 1.53 yards per out run, 0.17 targets per out run. Not great. Those are bad numbers. Rome Odunze, yes, we can make excuses all day, and I'll be on board with a lot of those excuses, but we can't dismiss this entirely. That last year he had a 1.18 yards per out run rate and a 0.16 targets per out run rate. I'm not fading either of these players. I'm merely looking at, yeah, there you go. Days without Odunze, the counter. We got to talk about Odunze every episode. Yeah. I'm not saying that you got to fade these guys. I'm saying recognize the volatility here. With Rome Odunze, the volatility is what if he doesn't improve that much, and what if we just got the evaluation wrong? With Jalen Waddle, the volatility is what if Miami doesn't actually change things up, and Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane are seeing, Jonnu Smith seeing like a 23% target share and Devon Achane getting a 20% target share. Like, that's going to impact guys like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So with that being said, one of the middle round trends that we got to look at are these two peripherals. We got to look at players who had substantially poor yards per out run rates and substantially poor targets per out run rates. And this is middle round wide receivers, the chart on the right, the table on the right. Those are middle round wide receivers. So wide receivers ranked 40 or wide receiver 19 to 42 since 2014, who had a previous season routes run rate or routes run raw number of 200 or more. So we have a decent sample size of them running routes. Their yards per out run was under 1.6. That's well above where Rome Odunze is at. And it's a decent amount above. It's 0.07 above where Jalen Waddle's at. Their targets per out run in that year were under 0.18. So they were only seeing a target on fewer than 18% of their routes run. And then they played 8 or more games in the current season. So previous season, they had poor peripherals. And then in the current season, they played 8 or more games. There are only 3 players here who outperformed ADP expectation by more than a point. Now, all three of them were decent. They outperformed by 3 or more points per game. But the average is that they underperformed by 1.3 points per game versus their ADP expectation. So it's a bad trend for these guys. They're bad peripherals for them last year. I'm not fading because I do believe in the talent level enough, but I don't think I'm going to be ultra overweight on either player this year, despite me being in on Jalen Waddle last year and liking Waddle and that obviously destroying me and my brand.
I'll do it again.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm afraid to draft him now. But I am saying that we have to keep in our range of outcomes. Like, what if Miami just does this again? What if they just do it again? They didn't change their coaching staff. What if their offensive line is still an issue? What if they are just getting the ball out quickly and that's going to benefit Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane more? I still lean towards the wide receivers more than I do Jonnu Smith, but it still scares me.
Okay. We've talked about Odunze at length. So if you want any other Odunze stuff, you can go check out
any other episode of anything.
Any other episode. Just type in Odunze in Reddit. You'll probably find JJ there somewhere. My question is, this. I know we got a lot of guys to get to, but if we think that Waddle is going to outperform expectation, be the guy that he was a few years ago, does that also mean that like he at his ceiling means that Tua needs to be bumped up a little bit higher than we might think he is?
So the data that I've looked at is more the opposite. With quarter, so like you'll see on Twitter all the time where people are like, Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua are two top 15 wide receivers, but Matthew Stafford's the quarterback 22. Like, what's going on here, right? And it doesn't really work that way. It's more so that you should be more afraid of quarterbacks who don't have a good piece to their offense in terms of hitting the ceiling. So it's not really that big of it's not going to change that much. Not only that, but like we know that quarterback scoring is driven by rushing just as much as it is passing. So like you can sit there and say this guy has really good weapons, look at their ADP, but if he's not a mobile quarterback, he's at a disadvantage, and Tua is not a mobile quarterback.
All right. Jake says that Tua's ultimate quote of this offseason is trying to get the ball out of his hands faster.
I saw that and I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, maybe
of course.
I think that's more in relation though to the concussion stuff.
Concussions. Yeah.
He
doesn't want to hold on to the ball.
Right. I don't think it means that they like are just going to run these like quick slants constantly, and just get it like, these 3-yard A-dot kind of looks.
All right. Next one. Not trying to spoil anything.
Who do you guys think this is? Huh? We might have talked about him earlier.
Yeah. You might need to shake it off. Travis Kelce.
I think Kelce is the easiest fade at tight end this year.
Ooh.
Like just the easiest fade. So last season, without Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce finishes the tight end 6 in PPR points per game. Okay. He saw like a 25% target share per game rate. He finishes the tight end 6 in PPR points per game. This year, with Rashee Rice back, he's being drafted as the tight end 6 in fantasy football. And I don't understand why at all. When last year, during our small sample with Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce had like a 14% target share. Like you know how many points per game he averaged with Rashee Rice last year? 5. He averaged 5 points per game with Rashee Rice last year. And you look at his peripherals, and if we see, like if I saw something in these peripherals, I'd feel better. His targets per out run was fine, but that was mostly because they had no other option in that offense in that shorter area of the field. His yards after the catch per catch, worst of his career. His yards per out run, by far the worst of his career. And if you look at trends earlier round, top 6 tight ends who have this poor peripherals, they bust at a really high rate. I think that last year we saw the start of the decline for Travis Kelce, who's arguably the best tight end of all time. But I can't get behind that price tag. I'd rather have Evan Ingram than Travis Kelce. I don't really get why he's being drafted as high as he is.
The Joker. And some sites he's being drafted higher than others. Like I think on DraftKings, his ADP is much higher than
it's insane. I think. Do you think part of it I know part of it has to be the stacking issue, right?
Well, stacking also on DK, you get bonuses for 100-yard games, and it's obviously a PPR site. So I think people are saying, like, how many tight ends could realistically get like a 100-yard bonus? Yeah. He would be one of them, but that's also like 2021 Travis Kelce,
yeah.
I'm not sure how many more 100-yard games, 10 catches he has in him.
Right. And not only that, but like, Tyler's mentioning it. It's like, this was without Rashee Rice, without a healthy Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
Xavier Worthy was a rookie. Noah Gray also kind of came on a little bit last year. So like I have way more Noah Gray than Travis Kelce in best ball right now. Way more Noah Gray. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think age catches up to Kelce and you think there might be even like an injury, Noah Gray is an easy 20th round pick, especially when you have a Chief or a Bronco on your team.
Yeah.
All right. Again, if you've been paying attention to
I had to add him to this list. Just
this. I will say this. It doesn't matter if this draft guide is just absolute fire, looks great. If Goff has like a top 3 season this year, if Grandma Goff has a top 3 season, we just might have to log off. for us.
It's not going to happen though.
Okay.
All right. So Jared Goff had a good touchdown rate last year. Yay, 6.9%. Super nice. But he also had less than a 1 rushing points per game average, which happened for his 4th straight year, all with Detroit. So you can split up quarterback performance with rushing points per game and passing points per game. Goff has been under 1 in every single season in Detroit. Usually the high end guys like the Lamar Jacksons, they'll be like 9+. Jalen Hurts has been like over 8.5 every single year that he's been a starter. But Goff is getting less than 1, right? So all of his production has to come through the air. And if you look at quarterbacks, here's another parameters and criteria for this table here. Previous season, 8 or more games, all these quarterbacks. Current season, 8 or more games. They played 8 or more games in back-to-back seasons. Previous season with fewer than 1 rushing points per game. And then previous season, a 6% touchdown rate or better. So what we're saying here is we know touchdown rates and passing production is really volatile. And we know that rushing production is sticky. So these guys don't have the sticky thing as part of their production profile. And they do have the volatile thing to their overall profile. And look what happens versus ADP, Kitchen. Every single one of them underperformed versus expectation the following year. This honestly isn't really a alarming peripheral from 2024 aside from the rushing stuff. I just had to throw in Jared Goff because he just fits the general vibe of, what this particular episode is about.
Whenever you one of the more grosser sweats week to week when you're doing like player props is Goff over under 0.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, it's the same as like Stafford's the same
because you're like, is he going to go for like 1? Because if not, there's probably some kneel downs involved and he's probably gonna get less.
You need like a 6-yard run from him or something.
Right. Yeah. So you're fading that. All right.
Wow.
There's a table here. So I had to block it with something. Just so happened I found a 2014 screenshot.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to get ahead of this.
Okay.
People have always comped me to Joe Flacco.
Yep.
Right. I feel like I've gone through the same trajectory and like caring about appearance more and like the glow up factor as Joe Flacco has. It's like the exact same timeline. It's crazy.
In this picture, you're not going to believe this. In this picture, you are going, yes, because Jim Santis mentions Joe Flacco as the quarterback that he liked for that week.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
I was like, well, that's perfect. It was also funny that, 20-year-old Davis Maddock was telling you to turn up your mic. Chat JJ's telling you to turn up your mic. It's a common issue, apparently.
Oh,
week to week. It's
wow.
like, whoa.
Wow.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, I had a period of time, just like Flacco. You get like a 3-year period of just like, I look back and I'm like, why did I look like this? And then, you just kind of, you get you regroup a little bit. That was the startup life for me back when I was at Number Fire.
Brother, I know about the startup life. All right. Tank Bigsby.
Oh yeah, we didn't even have to get to that part. We just skipped to it. Bigsby sucks as a pass catcher. I think that if you're in best ball, it's probably a little bit different, but in season long, I'm not going to draft Tank Bigsby out of that ambiguous backfield. I'm not going to, because the odds that
all right, explain this, because usually people that have heard you talk about the ambiguous backfield say that the lower priced options.
I know Kitchen people misquote me daily. Do you know how many? You know this about me. I say it all the time. My thing about being a fantasy football analyst has nothing.
You don't care if you're wrong.
I don't care if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm wrong all the time. I care when I'm misinterpreted and misrepresented. That's what I care about. So yeah, I mean, I've heard Davis mention this on the Swolecast too, where people think that I'm going after the cheapest back in the backfield. Actually, like 6 or 7 years ago, I talked about the ambiguous RB1 theory, which said the opposite of what Maddock or whomever is saying. But that also was kind of faulty data. So I've kind of backtracked on that. What really matters to me is pass catching. Like get the pass catcher in that ambiguous backfield, because we know that middle round pass catchers are unbelievably good against ADP expectations. So if you're looking at the Steelers, I'm going to probably prefer Jaylen Warren to Caleb Johnson. If you look at cost, if you look at the Giants, I'm going to probably prefer Tyrone Tracy, even though we could see Scadaboo play more of that role. And if you look at Jacksonville, I'm going to prefer Travis Etienne and Bashaw Tutin over Tank Bigsby, because I don't think I will be burned by fading Tank Bigsby in season long in a half or full PPR format, because we know he's not going to be a pass catcher. The dude has 16 targets in the NFL, 16 in 2 years, right? I didn't even mind him as a prospect. I thought he was more of a well-rounded player than he's been in the NFL. But if he were good on those targets and that very limited action, the dude has a career yards per route run. He's had like 168 yards or routes run throughout his career. He has a career yards per route run of 0.36. I can't even explain to you guys how bad that is. His target share per game was 2.4% last year. I don't know where the ceiling outcome is coming for Bigsby. Again, in a best ball environment, he'll probably luck into a couple of like 2 touchdown games or something like that, or break off a big run. He's capable of that. So I'm not really going to fault that as much, but I do think that we should still be striving for the pass catcher, and that's just not going to be Tank Bigsby, more than likely based on history.
I'm anxious to see what happens around, peak draft season, peak redraft season in August. I think Bigsby, I don't know where Bigsby's going to be, but I do know that right now, earlier in the best ball season, I was getting a lot of ETN. Now ETN's kind of climbing up, and Tutin, it keeps on falling.
I know.
I think I got him in the 140s or 150s.
Yeah,
a couple of drafts ago. It's really hard to fade that for him.
Yeah, I like Tutin's value probably most, and then ETN though is ranked highest for me of the three. I feel best about him like being fine enough, but I think Tutin still has the best bang for your buck right now.
Yeah, I'm just saying trajectory. They're kind of going in opposite directions,
which is nice for people who want to get Tutin exposure. Is this the fun one?
I always want to get Tutin exposure, I say.
I get trust me, my family knows I get Tutin exposure every night.
Whenever you get
Stay for the dad jokes, baby. Stay for the dad jokes.
All right. More Tutin exposure. Elijah Moore and Wan'Dale Robinson next on your list.
Just the most low ceiling options of all. Remember you heard my rant about the Wan'Dale role, right? Yeah. Was it last week when we talked about that? But people being excited, they're like, oh, what if Josh Downs plays the Wan'Dale role? Why? Wan'Dale Robinson had a yards per team pass attempt rate of 1.18 last year. That's horrific. He was terrible with every target because they were such low A-dot targets. And Josh Downs isn't like a great yak guy. He's a great route runner. You want him to win that way with separation. So with Wan'Dale, that's a red flag. Elijah Moore had a 0.91 yards per route run in 2024. He had a first down on just 4% of his routes run, which is worst among 100 plus target wide receivers. Like I said in the spreadsheet, it's arguably the worst combination in the league. And then if you look at the table parameters for this are yards per team pass attempt rates below 1.2, 8 or more games played in the current season. And then in that current season, 100 or more targets, and then I don't have to have I copied and pasted that so we can delete that part. So you're looking at players who had a poor yards per team pass attempt per game rate in a particular season. And then in the very far right column, I have best future rank, which is the best finish that those wide receivers then had after a really poor yards per team pass attempt per game rate. There's only 2 of them that have really been, moderately decent. You got Sterling Shepard, who ended up being like a fringe top 20 guy 1 year, and then Adam Thielen, doing his thing too. But you get Elijah Moore on this list twice, which is not great. And obviously Elijah Moore didn't do anything last year, but it doesn't bode very well. Like, look at the names on this list. Like, when players are that low in yards per team pass attempt per game, it doesn't bode well for their future seasons. So yeah, I'm not like massively bullish on either of these guys.
They're both in new offenses though, with new quarterbacks. Does that give you?
I'll say this: I've drafted way more Elijah Moore. I don't think I've drafted a single Wan'Dale Robinson.
I don't think I have either. Yeah,
and it's just because I don't think, like, I understand on DraftKings and such, like, you're getting a full point per reception, and maybe Wan'Dale does that and is able to but like, I just don't think he's gonna win me much, even in like a more of a robust running back build where I just need bodies like that. I'd rather draft like Romeo Dubses of the world and just go that route where we know they're getting vertical. We know there's more touchdown upside than a guy like Wan'Dale. And I liked Wan'Dale as a prospect enough, but I just don't think that he's the kind of fantasy asset that's going to bring home a fantasy title.
Yeah, if you're looking for targets in offense, it's just going to be Neighbors with like 17 catches a game.
Yeah, and Darius Slayton's still there too. And Theo Johnson, who came on, and now they have a couple of running back pieces back there. Like, maybe Wan'Dale still sees that a strong target share, but I don't think that's a lock either.
All right, going on to the next crowd.
This was kind of crazy. Nick Chubb last year had a 4.9% 10-plus yard run rate. So 4.9% of his rush attempts went 10 or more yards. Look at his previous rates. That was worst among 100-plus attempt rushers. Look at his previous rates. Before the injury, 21.4%, right? I think that was it was a shortened season, but still. And then look at the other rates. I mean, we're talking like up to 18%, 16%. Last year, he was under 5%. I think he just might be cooked. Like, that's what this comes down to. I think that Chubb might officially be cooked. This actually does make me feel a little bit better about Joe Mixon, a little bit, because
Woody Marks.
I wish I'd liked Woody Marks a little bit more as a prospect. I think that he's a good enough pass catcher, but I don't know if that's a role that he'll be, able to like I feel like if Houston really liked what they had in him, they wouldn't have gone out and gotten Nick Chubb.
Got it.
But yeah. I don't know. It's a weird back. Like haven't been like aggressive with Mixon, but I haven't really been getting the other guys either. And it could be a mistake at the end of the day, but Mixon's fallen at times. Like I got Mixon yesterday in the at like the 5-6 turn yesterday.
Yeah. Would you rather have Mixon or Kamara?
Kamara easily. That one like players. Alvin Kamara hasn't had lower than an 18% target share in his career, and players with an 18% target share or better, like 90+% of the time, end up as a top 12 running back in fantasy. So I'm going Kamara.
All right, Javonte Williams. This is a guy again who is falling in best ball draft. His redraft rankings probably higher than where he's going in best ball right now, just because he's going to be the lead back in Dallas.
We did that. Yeah, we did that best ball draft with analysts that we do every year that Pat Thorman puts together. I won a couple years ago, but I haven't had the best success in that thing. And I had I just hated my team, which means it'll probably be okay. But
yeah,
like I took Genty.
Is this the League of Death or whatever?
Yeah, the NFL 10 of Death. I took Genty at the 1-2 turn, which I regretted immediately because I knew it was going to be a wide receiver heavy room. And then I took Bowers with him. And then I ended up getting Javonte because he fell to like running back 43 or something like that, or 42. And I just, felt gross about that too. I think Javonte, like, I think that Dallas, I like Jaden Blue's value best probably still because I liked him as a prospect. I think that there's a lot of receiving juice and there's a lot of agility and explosiveness and acceleration to his game where he can break those big plays. But I think that we could be staring at a situation with Javonte Williams where he just gets work that we don't want him. Like I always go back. Remember when like the Titans had, or the Jets had like Sean Green, right? Like that just like annoying,
that's a while ago.
Annoying nuisance of a running back who isn't effective and efficient. I mean, look at Zeke last year stealing a lot of work, but I think Javonte Williams is better than that. And he had a decent target share last year, but he wasn't efficient at all. And if you look at his yards after contact per attempt, this isn't massively predictive. But he did have the worst yards after contact per attempt among 100+ attempt rushers last year. Doesn't bode very well for him being like the workhorse for them this year. So, I can understand if you want some stability and just getting a floor with Javonte Williams if he falls, but I do worry about where that ceiling is going to come from. I'd rather just go with Jaden Blue and hope that Dallas uses him in like a Jahmyr Gibbs type way.
You totally off of, you're not a Booby Sanders guy?
I'll draft him in best ball. I highly doubt from a season-long perspective we're going to care about Miles Sanders.
What would have to happen for you to care about Miles Sanders? Because right now he's kind of sharing
Javonte Williams injury, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if Phil Maffa, I don't know how they're going to, like, who's going to make the team.
Yeah.
What if game day they're dressing Phil Maffa, Javonte Williams, and Jaden Blue?
Yeah.
And it's not Miles Sanders, or it could be Sanders and not Maffa. But I think Blue and Javonte are the two that are kind of locked in. That's why they're getting drafted where they're getting drafted. People aren't necessarily thinking about like the fact that Miles Sanders might not dress or even make the team. Like that's still a possibility.
Yeah. And in best ball, that's just a wasted pick.
Right.
Especially since he keeps on. Go ahead.
I think that Maffa would be the one who would be like more likely to be the last, or to be the one out. Because Sanders is even
a 7th round draft pick, right?
Right. Yeah. And he's not that good. I don't think Phil Maffa is very good. But like Miles Sanders is already getting first team reps and stuff. So I'm assuming that that's the trio that they're going to run out there. It's a trio that makes some sense. Javonte can pass block and kind of play that role, like be more the veteran presence, but I just don't think that he's that special after that knee injury. And so that's where Jaden Blue can come in and be that explosive piece in the backfield.
Lucas says my 2 glorious Pookies are live. I think that's us, JJ. So shout out Lucas. And then is Kittle a fade too? No, Kittle is not a fade.
I think he's a target. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kittle is someone who, I know that you're mentioning that he came off a season where everything broke his way and cleared his target competition. But the dude just his yards per out run, his secondary numbers are way too good for me to fade, number one. But number two, they don't have Brandon Ayuk to start the year.
I was going to say everything has kind of broken his way through this year too.
Done. His splits without Debo are great. I mean, there's plenty of reason to draft Kittle in my opinion.
All right, you are looking at right now. That'll conclude the alarming peripherals section. If you agree, disagree, put it in the chat. Let us know. But you're looking right now at the PFF top receivers. And this also includes running backs and tight ends, which has to be why the Eagles are number one.
Yeah.
With Saquon and Goddard. My question is, do you see anything that you would change here? So you got Eagles 1, Bucks, Bengals, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Dolphins, Rams, Bears, Texans. Cowboys at 15 was interesting. Jags at 16, also a little interesting.
I would say this is the first time I'm looking at this.
Yeah, I know.
The Vikings should be above the 49ers and the Lions. I think the Vikings should be 4.
Yeah, because they got Hawkinson too. Yeah.
That's a good group. And Aaron Jones is a really good pass catching back. So I put the Vikings 4 probably, and then push the Lions down. The 49ers being at 5 is kind of weird to me because they lose. I get it. If you're,
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. We'll keep the 49ers in at 6. I would probably, the Rams and Dolphins might flip, you could argue, but we'll keep that the way that it is. And then I think that we put the Texans down. We push the Texans down. I love Nico, but we don't know enough about the other pieces there.
Yeah.
And then we'll keep the Bears where they are. And
I'd swap Bears and Dolphins. That was like one of the big takes for me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because the Bears also have, they got a tight end in the draft. They got
you're right. Yeah, you're right. So. Lists are really easy to critique and hard to put together. And so I think
it's also a talking point, and I just wanted something just in case we needed a few minutes to fill.
All things considered, though, I think this is a pretty solid list. There's been way worse lists out there. But I'd probably put the Jags don't have that much going for them outside of Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I like Brenton Strange, but we have no idea how good he is. The backfield.
Brown.
Travis Etienne is an overrated pass catcher. In terms of just like what he actually like, everyone thinks that he's a pass catcher.
Parker
but he's
Washington.
Not really. Parker Washington. Right. De'Ami Brown. So I feel like the Jags might be too high, but I can't think of another team that I would necessarily.
There you go. What about the Cowboys at 15?
Yeah, that's probably too high too, because there's not much depth. There's not depth.
You think it's too high?
I think it's too high. Jake Ferguson sucks. He's just so fun.
Okay. Well, who the Rams have with their depth pieces?
I would take Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua over CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens is what I'm basically saying.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe we push the Rams down a little bit because there's not that
right, but that's all I'm saying is that there's not much behind.
Yeah, okay. Cowboys are properly rated, okay? Yeah. And I'd put them above the Texans at least. And then I think the rest is fine. And then let's put the Bears ahead of the Dolphins and Rams, and I'd probably put the Rams ahead of the Dolphins. We'll keep the Dolphins ahead of the Rams actually because of the depth.
All right. Thanks, JJ. That filled exactly the time that we needed to fill. Appreciate that. We also have the highest view count at the end of the show. So that's good.
You know what that means, though? That people have to go subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
And then when we're done here, make sure you leave a comment. Let us know if you enjoyed the show.
Means we're a fourth quarter show. We get better as it goes on.
Yeah, we're like Derrick Henry in December. In December.
We're the December of June fantasy football shows. All right. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, leave a comment for us. That'd be awesome. We got the newsletters, at least 2 emails going out per week. One with JJ stuff, one with me kind of recapping where things are. I thought last week was good. The first email that has ever been sent that you read kind of after some of the other people read it as well.
I read it after some White Claws.
Adult beverages?
Some adult beverages. Actually, I drank some Trulies last weekend. But yeah, I was reading. I was like, I was a little bit happier, feeling decent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a great email. And I'm,
I know you were so complimentary to me in the chat. And I was like, oh, thank you. As a words of affirmation guy, I was like, I got it.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
I don't think I had even had a drink whenever I sent you that message.
The Charbonnet stuff I thought was interesting because you had 2 people last week mention them. So, and I know that we kind of like Kenneth Walker here at Late Round. So
we just got to make sure he can be healthy.
Yeah, invest in something in that Seahawks offense. Yeah. All right, JJ, I want to also give a shout out to DraftKings for sponsoring the show. Make sure you get the DraftKings draft one, get one. And they also have been having a few happy hours this past week. So get in there. Any final thoughts?
No, my thoughts are I'm excited to do the opposite of this show the next time we talk to people, where we look at the guys who kind of crushed it last year in the peripherals, but we won't do it next week. We're taking a week off.
I was going to say, as every show that has their best viewing at the end of the show, it's good to just take the next week off.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We're going out on top. No, we're going to be out next week for this show because I'm going to be at the beach. And then once I'm back, though, we were talking about this, the only vacation I have or trip I have, it's not even vacation, is going up to Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo with you. And so it's going to be a lot of content coming people's way after I get that little relaxation after just going crazy with the draft guide in June.
Yeah. Hey, recharge your batteries. I got this. Don't worry.
We're in great hands. Yeah.
We're in great hands. And so I'll just go ahead and wish people a happy 4th early in June 26th. So have a happy and safe 4th with those fireworks. And again, appreciate you all and the interaction that you bring to the show. It's awesome. I love doing this with JJ. So on behalf of JJ, I'm David. This has been the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. Thanks for tuning in.